So in the listening section, I hope you all are aware about the pattern of the listening test. If you have any doubts before we begin, you can ask me. Do you know what is the pattern of the listening test? What is the listening test and what can you expect in the listening section of the IELTS? Anyone who has no doubt so that I can tell you? Okay, Kashif, are you aware about the listening section? Or Anjali, do you have any idea about the listening section? Pratap, Nirmala, Sheetal, Yunus? Okay, I think it's better if I give you like an overview before we dive into it. Okay, right. No, ma'am. Okay. I think it's gonna be only fair if I start with a general introduction about the listening section. So now listening section is of the total duration of 30 minutes, okay? Now it does not matter whether you're going for pen and paper or you're going for CBT, whether you're going for general or you're going for, let's say, academic IELTS, the duration of the listening test is 30 minutes. However, if you go for pen and paper based IELTS, then you get plus 10 minutes only to transfer your answer on the answer sheet, okay? But the duration of the test is only for 30 minutes. Do not get convoluted. Do not think that you will get the paper is going to be for 40 minutes. No, you're just going to get the grace time of 10 minutes if you go for pen and paper, and that would be only to transfer your answers, okay? Now coming to the section, listening is divided into 4 sections. Part 1 or section 1 is a convo between 2 people, okay? Like how it is done generally, like it has to be a conversation. It can be like a funny conversation, or it could be, let's say, 2 people are just discussing something randomly. So it's just going to be 2 people and they're going to discuss about something. That is your part 1. Part 2 is a monologue. Then we have part 3. This is again a convo between more than 3 people, okay? So 3, 4, 5, more than 3 people. And then the last part is again your part 4, which is your monologue. Now, there are some things that are noteworthy for you to remember. The first thing is that each part has 10 sets of questions. However, part 1, part 2, and part 3 is subdivided, okay? So you don't have to answer everything in one go. You will have subdivisions. So you will have, let's say, the audio is going to say, listen to question 1 to 4, listen to question 1 to 6, and then listen to question 6 to 10. So it is subdivided. However, part 4, which is also considered to be the hardest part or the hardest section of the listening section, it becomes a little challenging because you have to answer everything sequentially in one go, okay? Now, there are certain things that you have to remember. The first thing is that the audio will not be repeated. So everything you have to do multitasking basically. You have to listen to the audio, you have to grasp the meaning, and you also have to give the answer all at one go. The next thing is sometimes you might think that you're splitting hairs. Basically, there's so much information and nothing actually makes sense. But the thing is, if you read the questions beforehand, it will all make sense, okay? However, if you don't really read the question and you just listen to the audio and try to simultaneously read the question, then it will become difficult for you to understand the whole listening section. So remember that the audio is not going to be repeated. The next thing is that every question will follow order, okay? So not that unlike your reading section where everything comes randomly, here in the listening section it follows an order, okay? So it's going to be easier for you. First question will come first and then you will get the answer of the second question, okay? So it is very cohesively written, and it is like, let's say it follows an order, okay? The third thing is that there's going to be plethora of accents, so you need to be aware of the accents. You need to know what is British English, what is American English, what is the meaning of zero and Z, what is the meaning of O in certain contexts. So you need to know the context of certain accents, right? And the last thing is that the fourth part, all the questions will come one by one, but you will not get any gap in between. As I told you, in section 1, 2, and 3, you get certain subjugations, you get certain parts where they give you some time to, let's say, read 1 to 6, and then they give you some time, and then you read 6 to 10 questions, right? But in the last part of the listening section, which is your fourth part, which is a monologue, you will have to answer everything in one go. Okay, and this is where a lot of students struggle because they cannot subjugate how to do it. So in today's section, we are going to talk about all of it. So I hope it's all clear. Any doubts or any questions so far? Okay. Anything that you would want to ask? Let me just quickly look at the chat box if we have any questions. Okay, we have one. Okay, okay. Kashif is aware of it. All right. So let's move on. Now, in the listening section, we have something called as the distractor, and it is very prevalent. Okay, so what exactly is a distractor? A distractor refers to any piece of information intentionally included in the audio passage designed to confuse or mislead the test takers. So sometimes what happens in the listening section, you will listen to, let's say, two people conversing, and then you will feel that the answer has changed. Okay, for example, initially they were talking about we are going to Bangalore, and the question that the next person would say, are we? And then the answer would be like, yeah, initially we were, now we are going to Delhi. So now, if you do not listen to it carefully, you would mark Bangalore as the destination, but this was a distractor only to bring you to the actual answer, which was Delhi. This was just a reference, but distractors are certain dialogues where the speaker says something, then he or she would autocorrect himself or herself, and then the next person or the next speaker is going to give the correct answer, right? So that's a distractor. It is intentionally included in the audio so that the test taker can get confused and may write the incorrect answer. But however, it checks you on your concentration power and also whether you can see when the answer changes. Okay. So you will hear the same piece of information in two versions. Okay, one is going to be correct, the other is going to be an incorrect version. And if you will not listen carefully, it's very easy for you to mark the wrong answer as right, and then of course you will not get any answer, any marks for that. So distractor is a piece of information which is intentionally included in your audio to confuse the listeners. So now, there are certain words that always qualify as a distractor. For example, however, but, initially. That means if you have these words in the audio, there are very high plausible chances that the answer is going to change. So that is a distractor. Okay. Any questions so far? Let me just quickly check the chat box. Okay. Hashmat gave a thumbs up, so I feel that there's no question so far. ठीक है. All right. So this is just an in-depth explanation of what it is.
Hello.
Yes, please.
Actually, I'm for as a verb, adverb और pronunciation में ना एक ही words के ना अलग अलग meanings होते हैं. तो हमें कैसे गेस करेंगे कि वही word को सेम है, क्योंकि जैसे हमारे सेंटेंस ये चेंज होते हैं उस हिसाब से वर्ड के मीनिंग भी चेंज होते हैं.
Are you talking about synonyms?
हाँ, यस.
See, you are correct कि बहुत सारे synonyms, but अगर तुम आपने एक बार क्वेश्चन पढ़ लिया है एंड द क्वेश्चन इज पर्टिकुलरली टॉकिंग अबाउट समथिंग, ठीक है, तो इवन इफ वहां पे वो सिनोनिम्स भी यूज करे, द एक्चुअल एंड ओवरऑल मीनिंग ऑफ दैट पर्टिकुलर टर्म विल नॉट चेंज. और यहाँ पे in the IELTS, they do not really want you to be a walking dictionary. Sometimes it happens that you will not fathom a particular word. तो उस पे इतना ज्यादा स्ट्रेस ना करके आप देखो कि ओवरऑल मीनिंग क्या है इस क्वेश्चन का. Is it saying that the exam date is this? Is it saying that the choice of, let's say, the choice of meeting between these two people is this? So you have to, even if you're not able to understand कि overall क्या मतलब हो रहा है इस particular word का, you need to understand कि generally ये sentence क्या refer कर रहा है. So in situations like this जहाँ पे आपको exactly meaning नहीं पता चल रही है, वहां पे आपको एक educated guess करना पड़ेगा, because of course कॉन्टेक्स्ट अगर आप समझ लोगे तो एग्जैक्ट मीनिंग अगर आपको नहीं भी पता चलता है, यू कैन स्टिल मेक एन एजुकेटेड गेस. ओके, राइट. Okay, now so this is again an in-depth analysis of what is a distractor. So the speaker is going to give you a piece of information and you will think that this is the right answer. क्योंकि वो ऐसे होता है कि let's say two people are conversing, one person says, oh, the exam date is 25th. तो अगर आपने देखा कि क्वेश्चन में 25th है ऑप्शन, तो आप सबसे पहले 25th मार्क कर दोगे. But the next speaker is going to say, oh, you know, initially it was 25th, however, it has been postponed to 29th. अब अगर आपने वो चीज सुनी ही नहीं है तो योर आंसर विल स्टिल रिमेन 25th. However, unfortunately, the correct answer is going to be 26th. Okay, so this is a distractor. You have to remember that they are going to trap you here. They are going to, they are going to try to, let's say, derail you from the correct answer. But if you're listening carefully, you know that the answer has changed and now that you have to mark the other answer. तो इसीलिए ये suggest किया जाता है कि wherever you see conversations happening between two people, mostly if they are using intonation in a way which exudes that they are not really clear about the answer, chances are very plausible that the answer is going to change. तो intonation पे थोड़ा ध्यान दो. The next is words. कुछ terms ऐसे होते हैं जो अगर हैं तो फिर of course change होगा, जैसे कि मैंने आपको बताया however है अगर, और you can say कभी कभी ऐसा होता है well initially it was like this. जो word initially है अगर आ गया तो of course the sentence is going to change and that was a distractor. So you have to filter it out and do not get swayed by a distractor, because if you make mistakes in terms of the distractor, and the distractors in the listening section are plenty, so you're going to significantly get a lower band score. So always be very mindful of what the answers are and see if in the audio the answers are changing. Okay, all right. So coming to the next question, so what are the different kinds of distractors? Okay, so sometimes the distractor can be in the form of an incorrect information. Okay, this will include statements or details that are factually incorrect but may sound plausible if you're not paying close attention. For example, um, the question is, what kind of pet did Sarah get? So the speaker one says, hey, did you hear about Sarah's new pet? Speaker two says, no, what kind of pet did she get? So speaker one says, she got a cat, but not just any cat, she got a Siamese cat. Siamese cat, okay? The speaker two says, wow, that's intriguing. I thought she was going to get a dog. Now, see, here it says she got a Siamese cat and the speaker two says, oh, I thought she was going to get a dog. अब अगर आप नहीं सुन रहे हो इसको correctly, so you might think that the answer is a dog, right? But the answer is a Siamese cat. Why? Because initially the idea might have been to get a dog, but that is redundant information in this context, and hence the answer is Siamese cat. Okay. तो इधर क्या है, इन्होंने जो ये she was going to get a dog जो दिया है, this is something which was not needed. This is a distractor only to distract the student or the test taker. तो अगर आप you're not going to pay close attention to what was the context of the audio, it's like a monumental chance that you might get confused and you might put the correct option as the dog, which is of course invariably going to be incorrect answer. Okay, so incorrect information is the first kind of distractor that you may anticipate in the listening section. The next is irrelevant information. Okay, now some details that might seem relevant, some details might seem that it was needed in this context, but if you focus, then you will understand that it was not needed at all. For example, if the question is, what color scheme is speaker one considering for redecorating the living room? Okay, if you listen to this one, speaker one, I'm thinking about redecorating my living room. Speaker two says, that's a great idea. Have you decided on the color scheme? Speaker one says, oh, not yet, but I'm leaning towards shades of blue and gray. Then speaker two says, oh, that sounds lovely. You should also consider adding some indoor plants to liven up the space. That's a good point. I'll look into it. Now, the question was, what was the color scheme that the person was considering? And here there is what is the irrelevant information is the addition of indoor plants to liven up your space. So if you look at it carefully, there was no need for them to talk about, let's say, inclusion of indoor plants, because वो context ही नहीं है. और अगर आप उसको सही से नहीं सुनोगे, and out of the blue, if you just listen to this thing, they're talking about indoor plants. And there is some option here as well in the multiple choice of questions. So there's a very high chance that you might give indoor plants a chance, and then you might give the wrong answer. You might mark the wrong answer as the right answer. Okay. So one is irrelevant information. The other is, incorrect information, something which is not needed, something which is not correct. Then you have the third kind of distractor, which is similar sounding words. Now, similar sounding words are those phrases, again, they might sound very close, but the answer and the meaning is going to be different. Okay. And then sometimes, again, if you're not paying attention, if you're not attentive, then you might really mark the incorrect answer as the correct one. So let's see again. The woman ordered dash dresses. Okay. So the man says, "Hi, I'm calling to confirm a delivery of 50 dresses to my apartment in Lovelock." And then the woman says, "I see, let me have a look. Oh, we have only ordered one, sir, and it's 15 dresses, not 50." Okay. So 15 and 50 is, again, if you don't listen it carefully, and when you are not like, this is some very limited piece of information that we are discussing. But if it is a monologue and they're talking about 15 and 50, there are chances that you might get confused whether it was 15 or whether it was 50. And then again, if you did not listen carefully, you might confuse 50 as 15 or 15 as 50, and again mark the wrong answer. So again, this similar sounding words are also a form of distractors, and you have to pay close attention to what they are saying. Sometimes if the vocabulary or if the spelling of a particular word is extremely difficult, they they sort of re-say it, or they sort of sometimes they even sort of say the actual spelling. They break down the word into spellings and say it. So you again have to pay close attention whether they are saying a particular term, whether they are saying something that is going to change, if it is an irrelevant information, or whether it is similar sounding words. Okay. So again, distractor can come in the form of a similar sounding word as well. Any doubts so far? Anything that you did not understand? Is it all clear? Okay, we have a question on the chat box. Just a moment. Okay. Anything that you did not understand? So distractor can not only be restricted in terms of irrelevant information. Sometimes it will be incorrect information. Sometimes it can be similar sounding words. So you have to understand that there's no one way to sort of point out that this is the only distractor. In the audio, distractor will come in different types of information. It will come in different types of in different forms, but you have to be able to put your pen down that, okay, fine, this is a distractor and this is not the correct answer. Like over here, it's so easy to get confused between 50 and 15 if you don't listen to it carefully, right? So you have to be very careful. And also, one thing that you can do in order to be very attentive is read the question first. Okay, when you know what to expect from the answer, or when you know what you are looking in the question, or what you're looking in the audio, it's easy for you to pay attention to the terms that there are in the questions. Okay, so you don't really have to understand and retain everything that you listen. That is not humanly possible. But only those questions that are a part of your 10 set of questions, if you listen, if you read them carefully, if you mark the keywords, it's going to be easy for you to find out the answers for these kinds of questions. Okay. And also remember, the distractor will come in different forms. So you need to actually be able to point it accurately whether this is a distractor or whether it's the final answer. And you will know it by intonation. If the answer in itself shows that this is with the intonation, if the answer is suggesting, okay, fine, this is the actual answer, that is where you can mark it. Otherwise, if you see that in the audio, the way the speakers are speaking, they are not themselves sure whether this is the actual answer. So of course there's a scope for the answer to change, and that means that it has distractors. Okay, so I think so far so good. Then we also have distractor in the form of partially correct information. Sometimes the distractors may contain some information which is going to be correct, but it will also have some information which is going to be incorrect, and hence you have to determine your accuracy. For example, The question is, what did the speaker buy at the grocery store? Speaker 1 decided to buy some fruits from the store. However, due to high price, I decided only to buy apples. Okay. So now it said some fruits. Okay. So some fruits mean, of course, he's gonna maybe buy apple and mango or some other fruit. But again, if you listen to it carefully, due to the surge in the prices of the fruits, he restricted himself or she restricted herself to buying only apples. Okay, so there was the answer is partially correct. So although he or she bought the fruit, but it was not a variety, it was just apples. Okay, so again, this again is going to be an incorrect, or it's going to be a distractor, because you may think that there's going to be a lot of fruits. However, the answer is, due to the surge in price, the speaker only bought apples, not a variety of fruits. So again, if you don't listen to it carefully, you might sit and wonder, okay, he said I'm going to buy a lot of fruits, but here he's just buying apples. He gave you the answer that the price was very high, so he just restricted himself to buying apples. Okay, so this is again another type of distractor that you have to anticipate in the listening section. Okay, now there's some way in order to how to avoid distractors. The first thing is practice active listening. How do we listen actively? One is passive listening. There's something that passive listening is something that we do is, let's say we heard something and now we are sitting and recalling, okay, in this audio these were the information that the speaker spoke about. That is passive listening, and that is something which is extremely useless for you, provided you're going to give the listening section, because in the listening section you don't only have to listen, you also have to see the information, you also have to mark the key points, and you also have to give the answer simultaneously. So you're going to do a lot of multitasking. So first thing that you have to do is practice active listening. Train yourself to focus on the main ideas, because again, it's very general and very normal. Let's say you talk to your best friend, right? Every day you converse with your best friend, and there's a piece of information that you share. But can you remember every information that you guys share? It's not possible, right? So it's only the kind of informations that sort of has your intrigue, or the kind of information where you think, okay, fine, this is relevant or this is spicy enough. That is what you can retain, right? Similar is the case of the listening section. So the spicy element of your listening section are the questions, okay? So you just have to restrict yourself into focusing only on the questions. Other than that, whatever information is coming your way is all useless. You don't have to focus too much on the extra information. But when the audio is going on, you have to actively read the question first. But as the audio is going on, you have to actively train your mind to see which question are we on, whether I've marked the keyword or not. So active listening is something that you have to practice effectively. The next is predict answers. Sometimes you would know that this is the answer. For example, if the question requires you to mark a noun, for example, if the question wants you to give the name of a particular city, to give the name of a particular hotel, to give the name of a particular university, you know that this is going to be the answer, right? If the question requires you to give address, if the question requires you to give the age of someone, you know the answer. The answer is going to be a number, the answer is going to be a name, the answer is going to be, let's say, a term. So you know that you are able to predict these answers. So read the question and see if there is any scope for you to highlight or key mark these kinds of questions where you can actually predict the answer. The next is stay calm and focused. This is especially important because sometimes while doing the listening section, you might feel that the answer has come very swiftly. कभी कभी बैठे बैठे तुम्हें दो आंसर्स एक ही मिनट में मिल जाते हैं, और कभी कभी ऐसे होगा कि आप बैठे हुए हैं एंड द आंसर इज नॉट गेटिंग अनाउंस्ड. इसमें क्या होता है कि बहुत सारे टेस्ट टेकर्स ऐसा करते हैं कि अच्छा चलो मैं नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन पढ़ लेता हूँ, अच्छा चलो मैं नेक्स्ट पार्ट पे चला जाता हूँ. बट रिमेंबर, इट्स the test is designed in such a way it tests you on your concentration power. Okay, so if you know that you are on the track and you know that the answer has not been announced yet, do not go away, or do not move to the next section, do not come to the next set of questions, because you never know when the answer is going to be announced. And if it's like a proven fact, if you miss out on, let's say, at max 2 questions, it's going to be humanly impossible for you to redirect yourself. So listen to the audio and see if the answer has not been announced. It's fine, it's going to come sooner or later. But do not delve yourself or do not move away from the question. Do not go to the next part. Listen carefully. Again, you don't have to pay attention to whole of the audio. You just have to see where is your answer. Okay, so read the question, see what is the requirement of the question, what do you need to answer, and once you've done that, you will have your audio. And remember, sometimes the audio will give you the answer swiftly. Sometimes it's going to take the soul out of you to get the answer, but that's how the pattern works. So you have to just pay attention, okay? You have to stay calm and stay focused. ठीक है. Some of the common distractors are similar sounding words, some information which seems relevant but it isn't, some of the words that seem very close but they have different meanings. So you have to be aware of these terms. You need to know that 50 means different and 15 means different, right? So if you have these kinds of distractors, you have to pay a close attention to it and mark the correct term, okay? And listen for synonyms and paraphrasing. It goes without saying that IELTS, like be it your reading section, be it your writing section and your listening section, you will have synonyms, you will have paraphrasing. So if at all you can't, let's say you can't really comprehend a particular word, do not scratch your head, because again at that point in time you can't really do anything. So read the context of the question and try to get an overall perspective of the question, because if you don't know the term, sometimes people say that you put your thumb on the term and you read the information before and after, and that will help you to understand the overall meaning. But again, if you are someone who can grasp it quickly, only then try attempting it. If not, make an educated guess and see what can be the meaning of this one. Because again, there's no negative marking in IELTS, so it's fine. Try to attempt one question and do not get stuck on a particular question where you don't really know the answer. Okay, so if at all you have a question where you don't really know the answer, or if there is a particular term you're not really well aware of, do not sit there and get stuck on that particular question. You have to push yourself into moving forward, because each question is going to carry its own mark. So even if you don't understand one, just move past it and maybe later on try to make an educated guess. Okay, and use your time wisely. Remember, before the session starts, like before the listening section starts, the audio gives you some time to read the question. If it is the first, second, and third part, in between there is a break, and then you have some time to read the next question, and then after each section you get some time to check your answers. This is your time where you have to make yourself familiar with each kinds of question. This is your time to see the the next part, because when by the time you come to the fourth part, you're going to be basically drained. Okay, so it's very important, when they give you some time to read, let's say 1 to 5 questions, do not just restrict yourself into reading 1 to 5 questions. Read 1 to 10 questions. When they are giving you some time to like check your answers, be very quick. See if you marked the answers grammatically correct. See if there is any spelling mistake. But then you move forward and you come to the next part. Okay, so that when they give you more time, you can move to the next part. So basically, you have to manage your time wisely. How you do that is by not wasting it into finding out the context of the audio, because again, the audio cannot be repeated, right? Okay, now. Yes, the answer was 15, because initially he said 50 pack. I think it was like 50 something, but then she said, I remember I ordered only 15, not 50. So the answer is 15, not 50. Okay. Mehul said puns, but I can't really understand the context, so I would request you to tell me what exactly do you mean. ठीक है. All right. So far, do you have any question or any doubt? Is everything clear? See, listening, if you listen carefully, I can guarantee you will be able to score a band score of 9, because again, unlike reading, unlike writing, you don't really have to bring to the table. You don't really have to think whether this is the right answer, whether this is true, false, or not given. You just have to listen to the audio and mark the answer. So it's very easy, provided you are attentive. Okay. Yes, they can use puns as distractors. That's correct. That's correct. Okay. I think For now, is there anything that you want to ask, any doubt or any question, or shall we move forward?
Ma'am, can you suggest some tips regarding focus? How can we focus? Straight focus means up to 30 minutes.
I know it's a little difficult to do that because, again, our mind is constantly running on ideas. But how you can focus is, remember, on the day of the examination, most of the times they will give you headphones, okay? They're going to give you headphones that are going to be noise cancelling, okay? So, majority of distractions are going to get, let's say, eliminated itself. But then how do you stay focused is, remember, everything is going to be chronologically, it's going to be in a chronological order. So read the question, like don't let your mind sway. And since on the day of the test, you're going to be under so much pressure that you will not have the sweet time to think about this, that, and everything. Read the question. Once you're reading the question, most of the times you will have some keywords. If you're going for pen and paper, you can always circle those keywords. If you're going for CBT, unfortunately, you don't have any other option but to like highlight it. And once the audio begins, just try to sort of stay focused on the listening section. That is, try to put your, like, channel all your energy onto the audio, and also keep the questions in loop. Remember, if you miss out on one question, you will not be able, majority of your distractions are going to go away. And then on the day of the examination, it's like it is not very common for students to move or move a sway away, because again, you're going to be into a lot of pressure, so it's going to be fine. But when you practice, if you're practicing right now at your home, I would suggest you to use earphones and also push yourself into reading the questions, push yourself into marking the keywords. That's how you will not like lose focus. Okay, so maybe you can try this. And okay, the next is check your answers. Again, at towards the end of the listening section, yes, you can use some time to check your answer, or towards the end of each part, you should check your answers. But do not, if there is one answer that you did not find, you will not be able to find it once the audio is done, because again, remember, the audio is not repeated. So what you can do is look for the grammar part of the answer, see if it is grammatically correct, or what you can do is look for the spelling. If there is any spelling error, you can correct it. But apart from that, if there is one answer that you could not find, do not use the time to like try and give the right answer. You will not be able to guess it again, because there's going to be no audio once it's done. The next is, do not assume the first thing that you hear as the answer, as the actual answer. Okay, see, again, this indicates the distractors. Sometimes some piece of information which might seem as the correct answer will not be the correct answer. Okay, so you have to listen to the whole context of the audio and then mark the answer. There are certain words like no, sorry, or some words like however, but, that means that, if they have it in the audio, chances are very high the answer is going to change. For example, if one says, oh, we are meeting on Monday, right? And the other audio or the other speaker says, oh, sorry, not Monday, on Tuesday. So sorry has changed the trajectory of your answer. It's no more Monday, it has now been shifted to Tuesday, right? So look for these words, and wherever you have these words, there is very high chances the answer is going to change. And apart from that, sometimes through intonation, which is the vibration in the way you speak, the movement, like the high tone and the low tone of your voice, sometimes if you just listen to that, you will be able to see whether the answer is correct or there is a scope for the answer to change. Okay, now the next is, instead of getting caught up in particular words or phrases, pay attention to the passage's overall context. I mean, first time there was a student who asked me this, right? How do we know that these are the synonyms? Sometimes if you don't really know whether this term means exactly this particular meaning, if you don't really know, it's fine. Read the overall sentence and try to make an, let's say, just try to understand what is the context, because at that particular time, if you don't know the term and you like you panic, it's going to be difficult for you to stay calm and focused. And remember, even if you get 40 answers correct or you get 39 answers correct, you will still get a band 9, right? So, like, not being able to do one answer or not being able to mark one question correct is fine. So, do not waste a lot of time on one particular question, move ahead. ठीक है. Now, okay, sometimes these are the areas where you will have major distractors, phone numbers, because there's a lot of digits involved. House numbers, again, digits involved. Zip codes, sometimes you will feel that, okay, sometimes they say O in place of zero, okay, because in certain dialects they don't say a 9-0, they say 9-0. So do not mark O, it's zero, right? If they're talking about numbers, you will not have an alphabet in the number, right? The next is sometimes names of the street. Most of the times what happens is if they are saying a name, they will always confirm it. Okay, so let's say she said it's a red street. So the other audio is going to say, did you say it's a dead street? And then speaker one is going to say, no, not dead, it's red, R-E-D, red. So if you're listening carefully, you would know what is the correct answer, right? So the only thing that you have to focus on is focusing on the keywords and your question. You don't really have to think about anything but the questions that you have to give the answer for. So you are not expected to remember everything in the audio. Only the thing that is related to your question needs to be there, okay? The next kind of distractor is the flight number, the distance between two places, name of a person. So nouns basically are major distractors. So nouns are the distractors that you can expect very frequently, because again, there's the way in which how they pronounce certain digits, there's the way in which how they pronounce certain names. If the pronunciation of a particular thing is extremely difficult, there is a high chance that the speaker is going to correct himself or herself, or the speaker is going to reiterate the correct answer. So look, be careful, and do not write the first thing that you've heard. If there is a contention between the answer, listen to what the final answer is. Okay. Now, these are some examples. We can skip this one. Wait. All right. Just give me a minute. All right. So this was about the distractor of the listening section. Um, okay. So this was about the distractors of the listening section. Now there are certain things in the listening section where students struggle a lot of times. The first kind of question is multiple choice of questions, especially when you have to mark two correct answers. So like, I hope you're aware of the fact that there's like one correct answer and then there are two correct answers. If the options are 4, you have to select one correct answer. However, if the options are 6, sometimes you have to correct two answers. And these two options, they qualify as two different answers, right? So what you have to do is you can either use the elimination method or you have to use the active listening method. In the elimination method, remember everything comes in order, right? So the option 1 is going to come in order, then you will have your option 2, then you will have your option 3, and then you have your option 4. If they give you the answer at one go, they are just going to give you the correct answer, right? So you have to, again, the simplest method how you can do these kinds of question is always read the options. Only then will you be able to know the exact place of the answer. If you have not read question 1, if you have not read the options that it follows you with, then it's going to be difficult for you to mark the correct answer. So always mark the options, always see if there is any kind of let's say if you're required to mark two answers, or if you're required to mark one answer, it's very important. The next thing is the matching type, where you basically, or your fill in the blanks again. Here you have to see what is the information asking you to do. If the question says that you cannot write more than 3 words or one or and one number, then if you write 4 words or 2 digits, it's going to be an incorrect answer. Also, when it's a monologue, there are sometimes the chances that the speaker will self-correct himself or herself. So again, do not write the first thing that you hear in the audio. And then in the map-based questions, where a lot of people struggle, there are certain things that you have to remember. A, remember that every answer is going to come in order, okay? If you have 1, 2, 3, 4 written, that's how the answer is going to be that's how the answer is going to be announced. If you have alphabets written, So again, the question itself will have numbers, okay? So the diagram is going to have numbers and then there's going to be alphabets. Again, now you have to remember that you have to place those digits or you have to place those terms in those numbers. The next thing that you have to do is, if it is a map-based question, always see from where is the map starting. That's where you have to align your eyes or you have to align your sight. The next thing that you have to see is what are the places that are already given. If you have some referential places, the audio is going to make use of those places. So if you have, let's say, car park given in the map, the audio is going to say, oh, it's next to the park and it's next to the car park. So you need to know what does next mean and where was the car park. Okay. Sometimes look for things that are very unique. Let's say most of the structures are square and then you have a circular structure. The audio will most probably use that circular structure as a reference. The audio is going to say, okay, on the circular field, there is a car park. So now you need to see the figures and you need to know where is the circular structure, right? Then again, there are two kinds of vocabulary that you have to be aware of. The first is your contextual vocabulary, that is your directional vocabulary, is what I'm trying to say. The north, south, east, and west, the right and left. Then you have your spatial vocabulary. Spatial vocabulary is basically your um, what is next, what is adjacent, what is winding, what is um, to the far end, right? What is next to, what is opposite of. So these terms you need to know. If you will not know the contextual vocabulary, sorry, the spatial vocabulary, it's going to be next to impossible for you to navigate the answer. And I think I asked this question before, but then nobody gave me the answer. Do you remember I asked you what is spatial vocabulary? Sorry, what is the term winding? What does it mean? Anyone who could find out the answer? What's a winding road? I'm going to give you some time to think.
Finish.
Sorry?
Finish.
No.
Wind
Anyone
up.
else? No, no, no. That's wind. Okay, yeah. Winding is something else. Like when I say we are going to wind up, it means yes, we are going to finish. But if I say it's going to be a winding road, what does it mean? Winding road, of course, will not mean finishing road. That's correct. Mehul said a road with a lot of turns. That's correct. So any road, you will see it in the map that it's a road. It has many turns or it is like this. It's going to be a winding road. And what does the far end to something mean? What's a far end? Any idea? What's a far end? That's correct, Vicky. Far end is basically the farthest point of something. Okay, so if they are saying move straight to the farthest end or move straight to the far end, it means that you have to go straight until you see the road turning either right or left. That's going to be your farthest end or your far end. But if you don't really know what is a far end, you will not be able to mark the correct answer. So you need to be able to know the terms, both spatial terms and also the directional terms. Only then you will be able to find out the answer. The next thing is always, I think I've said this in my previous slide as well. Whenever you get questions based on the map, it's a wise thing to make a small compass. You can always like make the, let me show you, on the sheet of the paper itself, what you can do is, just a second. On the sheet of the paper, and you will always get a rough sheet, okay? So if they don't give you, you can always ask for a rough sheet, but chances are they are always going to give you a rough sheet. On the piece of rough sheet, wherever you have map-based question, just make something like this. Oh, where is it going? Okay, so make something like this. Where's north? Anyone? Is north here? Yes, that's correct. North is at the top. Then where is east and west? Is east on the right side or the left side? Sorry,
Right.
Anusha, say it again.
To me, it's left side.
No.
East on
East will,
right side, ma'am.
That's correct. East will always be on your right side, and west will always be on your left side. So take reference from your hand, no matter where you're sitting. On the exam day, if they say, okay, now from the farthest end, you have to move towards the east. So east means towards your right. And sometimes they will say northwestern or northeastern. So it's going to be a place like this. And you have to remember, if it is going like this, it is northwestern or northeastern, okay? Depending upon, again, the context of the answer. So you have to know the contextual vocabulary. You need to know the directional vocabulary as well as the spatial vocabulary. In the matching, let's say in the multiple choice of questions, you need to be aware of the options that are already given. And then sometimes they are going to give you the answer directly. However, if they're not giving you the answer directly, you can use the elimination method, in which the options that have been always already been used, you have to mark them, let's say strike them off, and then you mark the correct answer. But ये सब तभी possible होगा जब आपने already options पढ़े होंगे. If you have not read the question, if you've not read the options, then it's going to be difficult for you to find out the answer. So, any questions or any doubts that anyone has?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, please.
Sir, ma'am, in section 4, most of students are lacking because of they have given 1 minute, and in the 1 minute we haven't read whole the questions. Then what should we do, or what tips and tricks are?
Okay. See, in the last section, again, you are correct. You will not have any bifurcation, right? You will not get the option of reading first five and then they give you some time and then 5 to 10. You will have to answer all the questions in one go. So, what you basically do is you use your time wisely. Remember, in the first part of the section 1, they give you time to read from 1 to 5, then 5 to 10. Then once you have read, you have given the complete answer. Once the option, like once the audio is done, they will again give you some time to mark your answer or check your answer. Then they move to the next part. Again, they swiftly break it to, let's say in the second part, 1 to 6, 6 to 10. What you have to do is, since you know that you can move freely from parts to parts, so like if you're on first part, you can always move to the last part of the answer as well. So if you, let's say if you're doing the part 1 question, you can scroll to the last part. If you're going for pen and paper, of course, you will have all the questions in hand, right? So in the third part, as soon as you're done with the third part, when they give you some time to like check your answers, do not waste your time in checking the answer. You come to the last part of the question, okay? Here, at least if you have read, let's say 5 questions, and then they give you, okay, fine, now we are moving to the last part. At least you will have knowledge of the 5 questions, and now you can read the last 5 questions that you could not read before. So especially in the third part, as soon as you're done with your questions, as soon as you've marked the 10 answers, do not wait and like check your answer, or do not wait and sit there and try to find out the answers that you could not really mark. Move to the next section before the audio begins playing. Read the questions, see as many questions as you could as you can, and then when they give you some time to read the questions again, you can read in continuation, and that's how you basically read all the questions of the last part. Otherwise, it's going to be very difficult for you to read everything, right? So this is something that you can do. And if you want individually, if there is any particular part of the question, or if there is anything that you want to ask particularly, you can definitely book free demos from us. So you can tell us and we can reach out to you personally and give you the demo for each part or just one section of the part. So I think more or less everything is clear. If you have any doubt, you can ask us now. We also have Raza sir again. He has great expertise in IELTS. So you can ask either of us any question.
Uh, Hi, Azra. Thank you so much. Hi, hello, everyone. I hope you guys are doing very well. Okay, so we had a very great interaction today. I can see, Azra, a lot of people, taking participation, and that's a very good thing. And guys, I have a special announcement. Okay. So as we all know that we are coming at the end of the August, so we have a special offer. Okay. I will mention here at the chat bot that this is only for the last 10 enrollments. Like whomsoever going to, join our IELTS coaching and IELTS test preparation, we're going to provide free speaking and listening evaluation, which is worth of 1,999 rupees. Okay, so that is something offer going on, and this is valid till end of this month, which is 31st of August. Okay. And the benefit of this is that you will going to be evaluated from both of the trainer, from me and Azra. Okay, guys. And we have a live demos going on. Okay. So after this live session, we'll be get in touch with you, take a feedback, and try to understand your journey. Because understand IELTS is not only the test preparation, this is something, the ticket for moving to abroad. Either you're going for academics or you're going for the journal. Okay. So yeah, that's all from my side. Guys, anyone have any query, any question, please ask. I'm happy to answer. Or if not, we're going to wrap the session now.
Sir, can you suggest some podcast to active listening to enhance our listening score?
Okay, see, podcast, what kind of podcast you want? You want to listen the podcast for the American or the Britishers, or you want to listen the podcast for the Indians? Because uh, podcast is only for, to get the information. Okay. What I will recommend, suggest, if you really want to enhance your listening skills, then go for, some news channels like, CNN, BCC, right? Reuters, Guardians, right? These are some, uh, we can say that platforms where you can get a bit of help.
And
Okay,
even in
for
Spotify, I'm so sorry.
yeah,
Even on Spotify, you have the options of 6 minute podcast. BBC offers that, so you can just listen to it. And Dave, I think you are very, you are very anally retentive on this question, because in the last live also he was asking for the podcast, and Anusha did suggest some. So you can definitely listen to those podcasts, which is like 6 minute BBC. And there's one more question here.
from Rahul
If you look
Gandhi.
at it, for doctors, do we need academic or general? If the doctor wants to study further, he has to go for academic. If he wants to practice, then general.
Exactly. Okay, sir, can you write here your voice breaking?
I think Anusha had a suggestion. So, Anusha, can you write it on the chat box?
Okay.
Yes, she's already given.
Okay, podcast focus on essay ideas. I will not completely agree with this. Yes, it will give you some bits of idea, but podcast is basically for the communication, right? You get an idea how you can, represent yourself in front of the examiner. Okay, you can just get an idea of the body language, like how we can represent ourselves in front of the examiner. What should be the body language? Okay, and this podcast is basically for the speaking and listening skills. Writing is, I would not completely agree with it, but it's okay. It's everyone's opinion. All opinions are welcome. Okay. Anyone else? Or shall we wind up the session? All right, guys. So see you soon. Okay.
Bye, guys. Bye, everyone.
No, it's not. Oh, okay, just Asa, just be aligned. We have one update from Mehul. It's not one evaluation. Okay, what I'm going to do, Mehul, I'm going to call you up, okay, and discuss with you in details where you get a better clarity about it. I think that sounds cool to you, right? Because it's better to have a one-to-one, conversation, and you get more clarity about it. It's more than one evaluation. Okay, it's not one, it's more than one. Okay. All right. Thank you so much, guys. Thanks for your precious time. See you tomorrow. We have a very fruitful session tomorrow, live session, same time, 4 o'clock, and that's on MCQs. Okay, reading section, MCQs. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. See you tomorrow. Bye.
Bye, everyone.